Hello and welcome back to AAFT 24/7. I'm your host Lishka Sharma and we are here on the day 2nd of the Global Journalism Festival and AVGC Noida. Here we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Shiv Sachit. He is a journalist, author, documentary producer. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, what inspired you to pursue a career in journalism?
Well, it's quite interesting you asked me that question, because when I was in college, I used to spend all my time at the British Council. I was born in the British colony in the Indian Ocean, and most of my classmates used to go roaming around playing football and games, but I used to go in the British Council and read all the newspapers from Britain, which was a Central of Information Office. So that inspired me to become one of those journalists.
Okay, so how do you see the future of journalism evolving with technology?
The canons of the standards of journalism stays the same. In fact, it has become much more important due to the advent of new technology, digital technology, which has impacted a lot of lives from all walks of life. It has affected every profession, but it has affected journalism the most.
Yes, sir.
Because there is this phenomenon that everyone gets up in the morning with a dream that he or she is a journalist.
Okay. So my next question would be, what is the most challenging story that you have covered?
I have covered lots of intriguing stories. Some of them have gone on air. I was a news presenter at Radio Spectrum. So some of them had gone on air, some of them had to suppress for political reasons. But now I can say that because that story is finished now. Our station was involved in a loan from a bank called BCCI, which we journalists used to call it. It was full name of BCCI was the Bank of Credit and Commerce International. But knowing the background of the bank, we journalists used to label it as the Bank of Cocaine and Cannabis International. That was the most intriguing story we have covered. So someone knew, the directors knew that we were going to put up that story on air. So what happened was they intervened that the loan we borrowed from this bank should not be a news story. So I said, well, this is unfair because you can't intervene with journalist independence in Britain. Yes, in India you can. There's also all sorts of political intervention. But in England you can't interfere with journalists. Yes. Even if you write my paycheck, you can't interfere.
Okay, nice, sir.
Okay, so that's, sorry to interrupt you, but that story, normally we put on air a news story 3 times on the headline. But that particular story, I deliberately put it on 4 times on news bulletin. And the board of directors at the radio station got very furious. In the next couple of days, they disbanded all the news team and there were no journalists left. So that was my most impacting news.
So, according to you, what is the most rewarding aspect of being a journalist?
It's to educate people.
Okay.
We started off in 1927. When I say we, British journalists like the BBC, which gave Doordarshan the same charter, it had 3 functions: to educate, inform and entertain. But due to the advancements of digital technology, what happened was the goalpost has changed. So those functions have expanded into not only informing, educating, entertaining, but advising, alerting, campaigning. It has added to lots of portfolio to the broadcaster. And this is why the technology has impacted a new modern journalist who have to learn, unlearn and relearn. Like skill, de-skill and reskill. That's the most important thing. The values have to be reinforced, the skills and then the ethics have to go back in journalism. We see a lot of journalism like Godi journalism in India, checkbook journalism in the UK, all has to be phased out by infusing and integrating ethics journalism and standards journalism, which is why we have to be very vocal and very, very ubiquitous and present all over the place, like the public service broadcasting, which was a station to further the public interest, which has more or less disappeared.
So, what difference you see in the journalism in India and in Britain?
Funny you should ask that question. It's very interesting. There's a huge difference. There's a sea change of difference. And I am not here to criticize India or the UK, because my home is the UK. My parental sort of affinity is with India because my great-grandfather must have come from here. Although I'm not an NRI, I was born outside India.
So,
But I see I need to be, one of us has to be a constructive critic.
so,
To be that, there are a lot of things that is not correct and do not add up in journalism in India. First of all, the person who's chosen to read the news, to report or be a correspondent, he or she himself hasn't got the right criteria. I have heard lots of news reporters who are screeching on top of the voice, which is very, very irritable. They don't have the same authority of the voice to make them an authority reporter. So as a result of that, the public do not get convinced. I have seen interviews, panel discussion, where journalists are speaking over the top of their guests, and the guests are not being well mannered, so the journalist has got a tough time there. So for that reason, I think the broadcasting sector has to reform itself, refine itself, and reinvent itself, not only from the point of view of journalist attributes, but the application of the technology. The ethics is not followed, and there are a lot of discrepancy between Indian standard of journalists and the British standard of journalism. So that has to be looked into very seriously, which is why I have written a book called Refining Journalism, Audience and Innovation, which is about to come just now, but due to this international function at Marwar studio, that book has to be very lightly revised in the preface, which I'm about to do, and I'm very pleased about that.
so could you tell us about your book?
Yes, the book is Reinventing Journalism in the days of digital era. Digital era is the time, what we call the post-truth age. And the post-truth age, if you broadly or grossly translate it into Hindi, it becomes Kali Yuga. So in this Kali Yuga age, in this post-truth age, rationality, logic, reasoning has been displaced by sensationalism, tendencies news, by rhetorics, by political narratives. So all that, which I see has to be readdressed, I have covered in that book. And for one to become an educator, like a journalist has got a job to educate the public, just like a school teacher. So that journalist is in the same category. He or she, as a journalist, being a watchdog, being the guardian of democracy and the ideals of democracy, I think they have a very tough job to do, because first of all, they're facing challenges, digital challenges, the balkanization of the audience, segmentation of the media, digital divide, digital addiction, digital abundance, all that, and the social media. The social media itself has not been proven to be a very powerful source of news, and yet a lot of people are following social media as a source of news. And those same people are complaining that social media is part of the problem, not part of the solution. So there is a problem there. The problem, what we call, is aprad, pragya aprad. Pragya means knowledge, aprad means offense. So you are offending against the knowledge. In English it's called a mistake of intellect. So the journalists, I've covered that in the book, and this is what has to go. Every journalist has to be epistemic. Thank you for
so much,
inviting
sir.
me.
Thank you so much,
Take
sir.
care.
For more such videos, keep watching AAFT 24/7.
Hello and welcome to AAFT 24/7. Today we are celebrating second day of Global Journalism Festival, and I am having my guest Dr. Shiv Sachit, who is a journalist, a teacher. And sir, tell me about yourself, क्योंकि बहुत लंबी लिस्ट है इनके बारे में, तो सर आप हमारे दर्शकों को कुछ बताइएगा.
Okay, thank you for having me and to give me this opportunity so I can give you my insights as a professional journalist working in London and around the world. I myself basically studied to become a journalist. My first choice was to become a pilot. Then I was a critical thinker, so I decided not to be a pilot. If I had become a pilot, I had to be dependent on the aircraft to work.
True.
So I chose a job that would give me independence. So I became a journalist, and I knew that I got a lot to offer to society. That's how I became a journalist.
So sir, we'll have few rapid fire questions.
Sure.
What inspired to become a journalist?
The newspaper of Britain, which I read in the library, in the British Library.
Any very interesting incident which you covered being a journalist?
Yes, I have quite interesting stories to do with election.
US election.
Elections,
Yeah.
general elections.
Okay. What do you like reading? You like listening music, watching movies? What do you like?
I have a number of hobbies, although I don't get much time for hobbies, but in between my work, say I'm processing some work on my MacBook and I've got 5 minutes or 2 minutes to process, I play my flute. I'm a flautist.
Okay.
I listen to classical music of Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma, Pandit Hariprasad Chaurasia, Pandit Bhimsen Joshi, all the classical singers and instrumentalists. I am very much fond of classical music.
If I'm not wrong, you're also author.
Yeah, indeed.
So any book which you would like to recommend to our audience?
The book that's coming up soon is a book titled Redefining Journalism, Audience and Innovation for the Digital Era. That book I would strongly recommend for not only for journalists but for content producers like non-journalists, citizen journalists and content producers for the media. As I would strongly recommend that book, and it will be backed up by also a website, so it will be quite interesting and beneficial to content creators.
Let's go towards the casual questions. Coffee or tea?
Depends.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
What's your favorite thing about your job?
The favorite thing about my job is to meet people of different dispositions. It takes me around the world, meet different people, and I get different experience. So it's UX, user experience, that drives me forward.
Favorite food?
It has to be organic vegetable,
Okay.
most semi-boiled.
Any junk food?
None at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
What was your first job?
My first job was a lecturer at a university.
What is your favorite season?
I'm a man of all seasons. I like Indian season because it's not sort of separated and dichomated like Britain. Britain, we have 4 seasons as well. But here it's very much blurred. It's like the annual season, excepting for the 2 months, December and January, are totally different, but the rest is quite tolerable.
Who is your inspiration? Who is your hero?
My inspiration, I would say Paramahansa Yogananda ji, who is a spiritual leader of Kriya Yoga. And I have got Carl Sagan, who is an astronomer and scientist. You may have heard of him.
Yep.
He's a great hero.
A last question. What was you afraid as a child?
My what?
What were you afraid of when you were a child?
When I was a child, I was afraid of, I can't recollect those days, but I didn't want to stay in an island. I found the island to be too claustrophobic. Sort of, I wanted to escape the island because there was not much for me to do. So then I moved to the motherland, which is Britain, and that's where I made my home. My wife from Himachal, and my 4 children live in London.
Thank you so much, sir, for being with us. For more such videos, follow AAFT 24/7 Noida.